Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video at ForgottenWeapons.com. Once again, I am at the Rock Island Auction House, taking a look at some of the guns in the 2014 Premier Auction. Among them was a pistol of a type that I've been interested in for quite a long time. This is one of the unusual one-off Chinese pistols that were made in the 1920s and the 1930s. China at that time was a very chaotic environment. There were a lot of international sanctions prohibiting the sale of firearms into China. And so a lot of small gunsmithing, well, small and large, gun-making concerns emerged in China. Now, the best of these were fantastic. They were very high quality. They made large production runs of good quality guns for various military factions. At the other end, you had very small, 1 or 2 or 3 man shops that turned out unsafe junk for mostly commercial or maybe small military contracts. And then the whole gamut in between, all levels of craftsmanship and understanding. There were a number of common foreign pistols in China at the time. The Mauser C96 broom handle was one of them, the Browning 1900, the Browning 1910, the Mauser 1914 pocket pistol. All of these guns were imported in some quantity into China and were familiar to the various Chinese gun makers and the populace. So when a smith or a company would decide to make its own pistols, often they would copy various elements from some of those commonly known guns. All right, so in general, there are 3 different main styles of these Chinese pistols, and we can identify them based on the type of Western gun that they're mechanically based on. So there's a bunch that are based on the Browning 1900, where they have a recoil spring above the barrel. There are a bunch that are based on the Browning 1910, where they have a recoil spring around the barrel. And then there are a bunch like this one that are based on the Mauser 1914, where they have a recoil spring under the barrel, and the barrel is in fact pinned in place and lifts up out of the gun, like a Mauser disassembles. So this one is a Mauser type. If we go ahead and open the action up, one thing that I found I wasn't expecting, and I find interesting, is that this feels like a very well-made pistol. There aren't any real sharp corners. The workmanship seems quite good. The moving parts move very, very fluidly, very smoothly, which is interesting when you set it next to, like, the stampings. The rear sight there, you can see, is all gibberish. In fact, what's even more interesting is that the rear sight is not even a rear sight. This slider is not actually a functional slider. These pins are all fake. This is machined into the top of the slide, and in fact the rear notch is lower than this front piece. So you actually cannot see the front sight through the rear sight. On this side, of course, we have Brownings, Brownings, Brownings. We have a Mauser stamp on the grip. We have a Belgian proof mark, a Mauser banner, and Brownings again. All of these, of course, are counterfeit stamps. The top of the barrel, we have a Belgian proof mark, an FN mark, some other things. And yet, like I said, the mechanics on this gun are actually quite nice. The magazine slides in smoothly, very nicely. It appears to be a reasonably well-made magazine. This is chambered for 32 auto, at least I'm about 95% sure it is. The bore is the right size for 32 auto, the magazine is the right length. These pistols are typically chambered in either 32 auto or 30 Mauser, occasionally 8mm Nambu, but that's quite a bit less common. You can see the rear of the slide. Zoom in here. The rear of the slide is modeled after a broom handle Mauser, a C96 Mauser, as is the hammer. It is single action only. The broom handle Mauser had a very good reputation, was very popular in China, and thus prone to be copied aesthetically, if nothing else. One other interesting element that I discovered, this screw, typically one would expect to be part of a recoil system, like this would be the front of a recoil guide rod. In fact, this screw is nothing. It's just a threaded hole in the front of the receiver with a screw that plugs it. So if we take a look inside there, you can see that that screw it's just solid. It doesn't do anything at all. So there is a guide rod in there. but it has nothing to do with that screw in the front. The spring is all compressed inside the slide right now. So one thing I find just generally very interesting about this pistol in particular, and I'm sure this applies to a number of other of the types of Chinese pistols, but this appears to have been made by someone who is a fairly proficient machinist, but didn't know the first thing about guns or shooting. And we can see that in some elements like the rear sight being fake, the line of sight being impossible. You can't get a sight picture because the rear sight here is lower than this position. So let me see if I can show you that. So there's your rear notch, little tiny thing up there. But by the time you bring it up high enough to see the front sight has disappeared behind this block. So anyway, the problems with the sights, the impracticality there, combined with, it just seems, so the one other control here, this was typically a safety, this style of lever on a European pistol, but on this one, when you push it forward, it acts as a slide stop, but not a safety. So it fires there. It also fires there. In this position, it will lock the slide open on every single round because it locks, this hook locks into that notch. So this is useful for disassembly, but you want to make sure that you have the lever back here in order to actually fire. When you do that, it cycles. It does not lock open on an empty magazine, which is not particularly uncommon. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. This Chinese one-off is in fact up for auction in the September Rock Island Premier auction. So if you think it's cool, you could in fact be its next owner. It's lot 1590. So you can go ahead and check it out at the link below to its page on Rock Island. Put in a bid on it if you're interested. I would also like to say I would love to find out more about different varieties of these Chinese pistols. If you happen to have one, I would love to get photographs of it. Please, if you're interested, go ahead and drop me an email at admin@forgottenweapons.com. I'd love to find out more and put together a catalog of all the different variations out there. See if we can find some patterns or identify some common guns, or just in general learn more about them. Thanks.